Okay, more UCAT practice questions for you. So what we're going to do is go through 3 quantitative reasoning questions, but really listen to the explanation, because what I'm trying to do is train your mind to have that knee-jerk reaction and reflexes that are going to help you engage the right technique in the right circumstance. And remember, speed and accuracy is key. So it's knowing how to do it the best way and the quickest way in each circumstance that's going to help. So have a look at these questions and then rejoin me at the end, where I'm going to give you more free resources that you can use to help you with your quantitative reasoning and show you how you can get some help to really maximize your score and get a 3,000 plus on the UCAT. So go ahead, go forth and prosper and enjoy attempting the questions. Okay, so as always, you will have a minute to do the first question and then 30 seconds to do each subsequent question. And then at the end, lucky you, you'll have me coming and going through all of the answers, and I'll, more importantly, show you the best techniques for speed and accuracy. Those are the 2 things that really matter. So I'll let you try this question, enjoy and have fun. Okay, so I hope you had fun doing that one. Let's go through the answers. Now, one really important thing to understand with quantitative reasoning, and the reason people can do very well, is that you need to understand first what is going on here. And often when you understand what's happening, you don't actually always need to get your calculator out. Now, this first question is one of those examples. So what's happening here? So you've got an explanation of how people are taxed. So whatever tax bracket people are in, they have to pay the full amount of the tax bracket below. So say I'm in this second one, like this question says. So I'm in the 15% tax bracket. What it means is that I then have to pay this full whack on, and then I calculate basically how far into this tax bracket I am. So whatever my number is minus the lower end, and then I pay the 15% on that. So it's just like the real tax system where the first tier is taxed at a certain percent, the next tier is taxed at a different higher percent, and then it keeps going up, right? So that's just how we need to work it out. So this example kind of helps you understand, right? Because if someone has an annual taxable income of $60,000, they're in here. So they're in this bracket here. So straight away, the fixed fee, they have to do this for all the stuff they earned up to this point, up to the 36,250. So then they need to pay 25% on the rest, right? So this is the fixed fee, and then you have to deduct the £60,000 they earn from the lower end of the range to get how much they've earned beyond that, and you pay 25% on that, right? So it's pretty straightforward, but you just have to get your head around it. Remember, on the quantitative reasoning, the calculator is very, very slow. And here is why you shouldn't use it for this question. Because what do we know already here? So they've given you Bill, who's 28,950. What we've got is, firstly, we know that we've got 895 to pay as his fixed fee for everything below the 8,950. So we've got 895 already. So that's it. Whereas the other guy was paying this, Bill is now paying this, the 895, right? So then what we need to do is calculate how far he is into this, and then work out what 15% of that and add it to the 895. Now, this is why you shouldn't use your calculator, because you can see here that very nicely he's exactly 20 grand above the lower threshold. So 28,950 minus 8,950 is 20 grand. And then 15% of that is 3 grand. We can just add 3 grand to the 895, and we know it's 3895. And lo and behold, I've not even looked at the answers, but I can tell you, I've been embarrassed before where I've got things wrong and said them with conviction, but I can pretty much with great certainty tell you that is the right answer. And let's have a look. So correct answer B, Bill pays the 895 for his first 8,950. Remaining taxable income is 28,950 minus the 8,950, which is 20 grand. 15% of that is 3 grand. Add the two together, and that gives you 3,895. Okay, so I hope that's clear, but I hope you can see how, bear in mind that the calculator is slow. We don't want to use it. So not that we don't want to use it. We want to do as much in our heads as we can. And it's really important we do that as much as possible to save time on this, because I'll show you what the calculator is like. Of course, this is the Apple calculator, and it's the normal one that you get with that, but it's not much different, right? You can type in numbers. So just as a demonstration, let's do this with the actual numbers. So 28950 minus 8950. See how slow this is already? Okay, so we've worked out that's 20,000. Well done. And then we want to find out 15% of that. So we times that by 0.15 to give us the 3 grand. And then we plus the 895. Look how slow this is compared to just doing this in your head. So maths is often not about your ability to do mental arithmetic. Sometimes it's understanding what you need to calculate. And then it's understanding what you need to what you actually need to work out, what you can do without a calculator and what you can do with a calculator. Really, really important. So this next question is a little bit more complicated. So let's just talk through it. Corey has an annual taxable income equivalent to $2,500 per month. She wants to save enough money each month to pay her tax bill for the year. The minimum amount to the nearest dollar that Corey has to save each month is. So again, before we dive in and do any calculations, let's just understand what is going on here. So they want to know that basically whatever this person earns throughout the year, how much they have to put aside to know what their tax bill is going to be, right? So the first step is we need to understand how much Corey earns each year. Now, this is a stupid step, but they've just added it to make your life more difficult, because hello and welcome to the UCAT. So basically, we know what she earns per month. So we just need to times that by 12 to, my maths is correct, there's 12 months in a year. That gives you how much Corey earns per year. So that'll be 30 grand. Then what we want to know is how much tax that will be, how much tax she has to pay because of that. And then we want to divide that by 12 again to understand how much she has to pay in a month. So we know that she does 30 grand a year. So we know that she's going to be needing to pay this 895. Then we need to do 30 minus the 8,950, which, what would that be? 21,050? Yeah, 21,050 would be the amount that she needs to pay 15% on. So at that point, that's when I want to get my calculator out, because I want to do, let's see, 21,050 times 0.15. So that would be 3,157. So that's the part of the amount she owes in the year, plus the 895 from the previous bracket. I hope that's messed it up. Equals, I guess, 4,052. And then we divide that by 12 to give us the amount that she'll pay each month. Hopefully this is right. Let's have a look. Okay, perfect. So the answer is C. So what have we said? We've said the annual taxable income. So the monthly income is, this is, again, it's a silly unnecessary set, but 2,500 times 12 gives it 30,000 for the year. Then amount of tax on the income. So she has that kind of bulk payment for the lower bracket. And then she has the difference that she owes for this, which, like I said, that's 21,050. Then we need to work out what that is with the calculator in 15% of that, which is that. We then add the two together, which gives us the total amount that she has to pay in the year for her tax. And then we just divide by 12 to give us the final number, which rounded up is 338. So there we go. That's, again, the best thing that you can do with a question like this is just take a quick moment to go, what do I need to know here? What do I need to calculate? And then you can dive in and start doing the maths. And again, second thing is always go, what can I do in my head? Can I save time and not getting the calculator out? Okay, let's move on to the next question. So in this question, it's asking, so Omar has a taxable income of 36,250 per year. What percentage, correct to one decimal place, of his taxable income does Omar pay in tax? So really, this is asking for how much does he pay in tax? What is that as a fraction, or as a percentage in this case, of the amount that he earns, right? So we've actually, this is where you take a moment just to go, okay, 36250. Well, I can see that 36250 is at the border of these ranges, right? So that you know, I mean, you can work it out and it would give you this amount. But if you work it out like this, you pay the step fee of the bracket before, and then obviously the difference is 0. So 25% of 0 is nothing. So we know, but you don't have to bother doing that. We're not going to do that. We know that. And also, if you were to work out the 895 plus 25% of the difference between these two, so 15% of the difference between these two, it would give you this. But we don't need to do that, because this is where we're using our logic before we use our maths. So we know straight away that's the amount he pays in tax. So very simply, all we need to do is do 4,990 divided by 36250, and that will give us a percentage, which is 13.8. If you really need to have it given in the exact percentage, you always times by 100, but you can just look at the decimal point and you know what it's going to be. So it's 13.7 rounded to the nearest one, 13.8. Again, let's see if it's correct. Yeah, this is a simple one because this is more about logic than it is about maths, like I said before. So the second row of the table explains that the total tax paid at the top of the taxable income bracket is 4,990. Omar's taxable income is this. It's basically, yeah, that's all it's saying. So here's his tax, here's what he earns, and we want to just work out one divided by the other to work out what his tax is. Yeah, so I hope you got that one. Right, let's have a look at the next question. Okay, so this one is saying, so the values at the top and the bottom end of each income bracket are going to increase by 10%. So basically, this is going up by 10%, they're all going up by 10%. So it means that the brackets are basically getting wider, but that doesn't really matter for this. So what will the change in income be to the nearest dollar after tax has been deducted of a person earning 36,250? Now, what we need, so we know currently, from the previous questions, we know that in the old system that this guy, or this whoever it is earning 4,990, right? So really all we need to do is calculate how much tax they're having deducted, because they're earning the same, but the tax has changed. So how much more they're getting deducted, i.e., and we know that it's going to be more because there's an increase in the brackets. We know before calculating this, if the amount that goes, so this lower end is going up, so by 10%, whatever he earns, there'll be more taken away from it. So that means that the amount that is going to be taxed is less. So again, before we calculate, we just need to understand what we're dealing with. This is going up, but also this is going up as well. And that means that the 36,250, which is their pay, which is staying the same, is going to have more taken off it, because instead of the 8,950, it's actually 10% more of the 8,590. So that'll probably be in the, touching on 10 grand region. The amount that's going to be taken off is higher. So that means that the overall, once you've times it by the 15%, is smaller, because we're going to have a smaller amount than he was previously paying, which means that less is taken off his pay, which means that his pay is going to go up. So we can immediately know that these are going to be out of the equation, right? It's not going to decrease the amount he's earning. This is a good thing for the taxpayer in terms of not paying as much tax. So that's what's going to happen. So let's do the calculations. I hope I haven't confused you with this. So the first thing we need to know is, what is this new number? I don't think I could do that in my head. So I'm going to do 8,950 times 1.1 to give me the new number. And I said it's going to be around 10 grand. Now, let's see if there's a way that I could do this by guesstimating. To speed up, I wonder whether I could do this. Let's do it the long way. And if I'm in full UCAT maths flow, maybe I could do this a bit quicker. So anyway, so it's 9,845. Now, we want to take it away from the 36250. A little trick is, if I do that minus 36250, it's going to give me a negative number, but that's the number that I need. So it's the 26,000 that I need here. Now, that is the thing that we're going to have the 15%. So times 15%, 3960. And because I'm trying to because I'm in the negative, let's minus 895. So that will give us the tax that he has to pay now, right? That is what's been taken away from his number here. So the 4855 is being taken from that number here to give you his earnings after tax. Now, that is instead of 8,990 being taken away. So he's going to have more. But really, all we need to know is, what is the difference between the 4,990 minus the, what was it? 4,845, wasn't it? 4,855. See, yeah, in theory, you should, if you do the difference between these two, you should get the answer. But I end up with this, which obviously isn't right. So let's go through the answer. Let's see what they say. So in the lowest bracket, 895 increases to, yeah, that's it. So nearly 10 grand, right? So there's an increase in tax of 984.50, right? So the amount of taxable income is that minus that, yes, gives you the 26 grand. He times it by 15, and that gives you the amount that they have to pay. And then, okay, so here's what I've not done. So I've probably not increased the fee from the bracket below. Yeah, that's it. That's why I have a disparity of about $90, because I've not increased this amount. So the highest amount of tax on the old system. So we know the tax system of that. Great. And then the new amount of tax was his original pay, like we said, minus the 495. So, okay, yeah, I get it now. And 4945, because pay minus the bracket times 15, that's increased, but also the actual lower bracket one has increased. So the amount of tax that you paid in this 895 that you'd have paid as you bolt on has increased as well. So that's where I went wrong. But that said, if I was in the real thing, my calculation came out about 134. And actually, that is kind of, when you look at it in ballparks, that's still in the ballpark of this. So I would have guessed that. And of course, I would have got it right, but in the wrong way. But yeah, what I forgot to do was to add 10% onto here. And then that would have been the difference. Yeah, a silly mistake, really, but one that's easily done. It's only when you do this with practice, when you practice on these. Like I say, I'm a bit rusty because I haven't sat this exam in a very long time. But it's when you have more of a go at these, you'll then understand these little extra things that you might not have thought of. So you'll be aware of these traps. Anyway, well done, and let's have a go at another question. Okay, we have flicked to night mode now. As always, I'm going to give you a minute to do the first question, then 30 seconds to do each subsequent question, and then I will meet you back here shortly to go through some answers. Enjoy. Well, I'm sure you had as much of a ball doing that as I did, but hey ho, if we want to get into medical and dental school, these are the things that we have to spend our evenings doing to jump through this hurdle. But let's have a look at these questions now. So again, apologies if you've read it already, but I'm just going to read it out for you. So the diagram shows the asset allocation recommended by an asset management company based on the investor profile. The asset allocation for a conservative investor is shown as the angle subtended at the center of the circle. Asset allocation for moderate and aggressive investors is shown for every $100 of the respective investment. So the asset allocation for moderate and aggressive investors is shown for every $100 of the respective investment. Okay, so just to bear this in mind, right? So firstly, this is just really important to get to grips with what the hell's going on here, right? So when somebody is basically putting their money into a asset portfolio, and what they're doing is they're selecting whether it's a safe mix of bets. So whether they're doing cash is always safe, so the more conservative ones will have bigger proportions of cash, and then the stocks are the more risky thing, and basically they'll have different mixes based on how aggressive they want to be, how much of a risk they want to take. So the inner circle is the most conservative, so it'll be the safest one. Then the moderate is more aggressive, and then the really aggressive one is the outer one. And the piece of the pie for each is represented by the angle, right? So first of all, remember that the asset allocation for moderate and aggressive investors is shown for every $100 of the respective investment, right? So that will probably come in later. Let's have a look at this first question, which is clearly about angles. So what is the angle subtended at the center of the circle for an investment in stocks for a moderate investor? Okay, we want to find this moderate investor circle. Now we're going to look at the key. So this is cash, that doesn't concern us. These are bonds, that doesn't concern us either. And this are the two that concern us. So this one with 25 and this one with 40. Right, so let's try. So you can use a calculator for this, but this is where I want to show you how just like thinking about it a little bit more intelligently is going to help you save time. So here what we have, so the total here we know is 10 plus, so 10 here, 25 here, 40 here, 25 here. So easy maths, 25 plus 25 is 50, plus 40 is 90, plus 10 is 100. Right, so what's nice about a nice even number of 100 is that we know that the whole of this is 360 degrees. So if we divide this into increments of 1, which is 3.6 degrees per, or you can do it's 36 degrees per 10, right? So what we want to know is we've got here this 40 and this 25, which adds up obviously to 65. So we've got 65 out of 100, which makes up the piece of the pie that we're interested in. Now, you can do this several ways. You could just do 360 times 0.65 and use the calculator. I wouldn't hold that against you. But here's what I think is actually that 65 is very close to 2/3, right? So 60, let's call it 67% would be 2/3. So let's say 2/3 of 360 is 240, right? And then we need 2% off to get to 65%, which is 3.65 makes up 1%. So if we take away 7.2 from 240, that would leave us with, let's call it around 263-ish, right? So then we look at the answers and you go, well, actually this one is, so we've got two that are close, but it's definitely close. It's actually beyond the 234, the way that we're doing it with the rough method. And that would give us 234. So I had embarrassed myself in the previous one by making a bit of a hash of the question. Let's see if I can redeem myself. So let's have a look. Correct response D, brilliant. Okay, so here we go. Calculate asset allocation for stocks. For a $100 investment for a moderate investor, 25 plus 25 equals 65. The angle subtended. So yeah, they're going about it a different way. But basically what we're doing is, well, no, actually, no, they're not going about it a different way. They're doing exactly what we're doing. So they are figuring out the proportion of the pie that we're concerned with and timesing it by the 360. You don't need to do all of this calculation. The quicker way is the way that I was doing it, which okay, that's about 65% and it's about 2/3, and we can figure it out from there. So this is just me showing you how my mind works for speed. This isn't the way I would necessarily do it if I wasn't doing the UCAT, but this is, again, can't emphasize enough how not only accuracy is important, but speed is just as important. Because, you've seen me get questions wrong in this series and doing things, but I'm not concerned about that if I'm going at a good pace. Because remember what I always say is that if you only complete 80% of the exam getting 80% right, then you will only get 64%. But if you complete 100% of the exam getting 70% right, you'll get 70%, right? So I keep saying right a lot, but that is how you make sure that you get those extra scores, because there are easy questions waiting for you towards the end that you're missing out on by not getting them and being too slow. Anyway, Thank you for my TED Talk on UCAT tactics. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so let me move this ugly mug out of the way. Okay, the total amount of money invested by a conservative investor was $23,525. What was the difference in the value of the assets allocated to the bonds and the value of the assets allocated to cash for the conservative investor? Okay, so what it's saying here, we're conservative, so we're looking at this middle circle, and what we're doing is we need to compare the difference between this and this, right? Now, we don't know what this is yet, but we just want to know what the difference of that is. Now, just thinking for a moment, there are several ways that we can approach this, and I am going to tell you the slow way, and then I'm going to tell you the very, very quick way. Right. So what we want to do is we want to know what percentage of 360 this is, right? And I'm going to give you a clue to the quick way. If you know your 36 times tables, so 36 degrees is a tenth. And this is something that's important because bear in mind that there will always be numbers that relate to nice fractions a lot of the time. Sometimes they won't, but right, we've got 72 here. Well, what's significant about 72? Tenth of 360 is 36, obviously. So 2 times that, i.e. a fifth, is 72. Now, you take 3/5, so you times that by 3, and what do you get? 2/16. So you actually know that this is 60%. And because that's exactly a fifth, that's exactly 3/5, we don't actually need to do 360 minus 216 minus 72 to know that the remainder is actually also going to be 72%, because that adds up to 5/5, right? So what we could do here is work out what 216 over 360 is and times it by that to figure out what the allocation amount is for that. And then, what we would do is we'd have to minus all of these, figure out that 72 over 360 times this number would give us that amount, and you'd have to take away this one from this one, and that would give you the difference. But as we know, so this is 3/5, this is 1/5, so the difference between that is 2/5, i.e. 40%. So the quick way to do this is basically just to do 40% of this. So let me just get the calculator up. So the quick way is to do 23,525 times 0.4 equals 9,410. And I'm trying to think what I would do with the calculator here. I would maybe use the calculator for this, but equally, let's look at the numbers. So yeah, the numbers are probably a bit too close. Sometimes, again, this is another tactic that I wouldn't necessarily use in this, but one tactic that I might use would be to look at all of the other numbers and know from like 40% of that. So let's say a half is what? 11,700 odd. So yeah, then so 10% off that. So take 2,352 off that. Am I confident with that is never, it's never going to be too high or too low? No, I'm not particularly confident with this, but I do. So I wouldn't be guessing at this stage. I want to use my calculator, and I would do that. And again, this is where I'm getting a bit nervous now. Correct spot C, brilliant. The difference in the angle subtended for the bonds is that. The difference in the value asset allocation. So they've done it slightly differently. They've just worked out the difference between the angles, divided the angles by the difference by 360, because that gives you the percentage, the percentage difference, and then times it by that to get that number. But like I say, my way, well, I showed you the very slow way. This is probably an in-between way, and then the really quick one was the one where you just eyeball the fractions and you know very quickly. So I'm talking about this, I spent bloody ages talking about it, but actually it's something that in my head is going very, very quickly. Now, this is exactly what we talk about on the online course. If you want to check out our UCAT course, it's just loads of these videos of me talking through things like this, but really getting you into my head as to how I look at these, and the knee-jerk reaction that I have to employ the quickest tactic in the fastest way possible to, go away and get a good score. So let's move on to the next question. And this question then is asking, what is the mean value of asset allocation to cash for an 18,200 investment for a moderate investor and an aggressive investor? Okay. So what it's asking is, so cash, right, for aggressive and moderate. So for 18,200, for the amount that they would invest in that, what would the average overall amount of cash be between the two? Now, this is where I hold my hands up, and I'm not perfect with these things. I've just realized that I didn't actually understand what they meant by this 100 for every 100 investment, and they all add up to 100. I hadn't realized that. So this circle has to add up to 100 because it's giving you the piece of the pie for every $100. So I thought it was percentages, or I didn't realize. I thought it was a coincidence that it added up to 100. I'm only just realizing now that that's what it means. They all have to add up to 100. So like I say, I am human and I do make mistakes. But this is why I do these live, to show you how sometimes I have errors in thinking as well, and you kind of realize as you're going along. So we can do quite quickly, right? 55 plus 30 is 85. 10 is 95. So this must be 5%. Now this is 10%. We worked out before. So the slow way would be to do 10% of 18,200, so $1,820, plus 5% of it, which is what would that be? Something like 910, something like that, $910. Then you'd add the two together and you'd divide by 2. But that's a very slow way of doing it, because I hope that you are with me on the smart short hack for this. This is 10%, this is 5%. We're taking the average of those two percentages, so you might as well just do 7.5%, that's the in between those two, and times that by the 1820, and that'll give us the result, right? So let me get our calculator up. So again, this is about economy of movement, almost economy of calculator use. So 0.075 to represent 7.5%. times, and I should be using the keyboard here because otherwise it would be even slower, and that's 1365. Let's have a look. There we go, correct answer B. Asset allocation for moderate is $10, cash is $5, mean asset of so they've done it the same way. They've done 10 plus 5 divided by 2, obviously 7.5, and then they've times that by the dollar amount to get where they are. But we're smarter than that. We can do the quicker version. Okay, alrighty, on to the next question. Okay, so if the asset allocation for an aggressive investor is shown as a semicircle, what would the angle subtended by domestic stocks for an aggressive investor be? So essentially what this is saying, this circle, this aggressive circle, and if we just halve it and keep the proportions the same, what would the angle be? So basically, we just need to know what this angle is. So 55% of 360, and then halve it, right? I think this is where I probably would use the calculator, but let's see if I can do it in my head. 55%. So obviously 50% would be 180 of 360, and then the 5% would be another 18. So we're looking at 198 gives us the angle that this is. This is 198 angle, just over 180. And then we want to halve that. So 198 divided by 2, what's that? 99, right? So that's probably right. Okay, so there you go. Good. So again, there is a slow way of doing this. Hold it against you for getting the calculator out and going 0.55 times 360. I'll do it now quickly just to show you we're doing, because just to reiterate, this 360 degrees is represented by a total of 100. 55 out of 100, of course, is 55%. So 0.55 times 360 equals 198, and we're converting that proportion to a semicircle. So a semicircle is half of a circle, obviously. So it goes from 360 to 180, which is half, and then to halve this would be your 99. Okay, so that's how we get to it. But I'm just trying to tell you quick mental shortcuts that if you can understand them, save you having to, as you can see, laboriously go through this calculator. It's long and it is not particularly efficient. So if you can save yourself having to do that, then it's not a bad way to save a bit of time. Again, you could use the calculator, that's totally fine, but I just think this is a good way of doing it. Cool, so well done for having a go at that. Let's do one more question and then we'll wrap it up if your brain isn't too fried already. One thing that I forgot to say about the previous question was that you really need to get your head around these common things like, circles, factors of 360 and, portions of that and all of that sort of stuff. Once you get familiar with those sorts of proportions and fractions and all of that kind of percentage type stuff, once you get that in your head, you'll be so much quicker. So bear in mind that I've chosen these questions for a reason, and these are themes that come up very frequently. And if you can nail those numbers and get them ready in your head, you will be a lot more familiar with it. And again, that will increase your speed, and your accuracy, which is so, so important. Now, you'll be pleased to know this is the last question that we're going to do. Again, 1 minute and then 30 seconds for each subsequent question. I will see you on the other side, my friend. Okay, so well done for going through that. And this is what the UCAT is about. It's mentally draining and it's quite taxing on the mind. So they will tire you out these questions, but it's about your fitness, your mental fitness to just keep going through these. And practice will make perfect. But let's have a look at these answers now. And again, this is a really good one I'm going to show you because, well, let me have a read, but I think I can see some really good ways that we can do some shortcuts. So what's going on here? So the table shows a number of daily downloads of 3 grocery delivery apps in a country. One number is missing from the table. So no surprises for what one of the questions is going to be. So the number of downloads of app 1 on day 4 is incorrectly written as 600. So this one is incorrect. Okay. The ratio of the median number of downloads per day of app 1 with the correct number to the median number of downloads per day of app 3 is 30 to 90. So, okay, that is a lot of stuff to be thrown at you. And then it's saying, so what is the correct number of daily downloads of app 1 on day 4? So basically, you knew as soon as it said there's a mistake here, it's going to want you to recalculate this number. So I didn't read that last part because you've done enough of these, you know what's coming. So what's it basically saying? It's saying that work out the median of app 3 of the days, and then it's 39. It's a 39 to 40 ratio. So you need to divide it by 40 and times it by 39 to get that number. Now I'm going to show you, this is exactly why this is a great question to illustrate how you can be smart about these questions. Because I'm sure the official answer is going to tell you, work out the median here, divide it by 40, times it by 39, and Bob's your uncle. But let's get the median first, then I'm going to show you. You don't need to write this down. You can see here from eyeballing it that first, so remember, median is when you align them in numerical order, it's the middle one. So we've got 200 first, 450 next, 800, 800, 1000. So you know that the median is 800. Now, you can divide by 40 and times by 39, but you've got a lovely set of numbers. You've got 80 and 40. So we know that 800 is 20 40s, right? 20 times 40 is 800. So you've got 40 20s in 800. So really, instead of dividing it to 20 and timesing it by 39, why don't we just take away one of the 20s in the ratio, and that will give us the ratio. It's the same. Taking away 1/40th is the same as dividing by 40 and then timesing by 39. And if they were asking a ratio of 38, we would take away 2/40ths, i.e. in this case, 40. So I hope that's making sense. But basically, you can do the maths in your head, but if you do 800 divided by 40, that's 20, and if you times it by 39, that's 780. But it's the same as if you take away 1/40th, which is minus 20 from 800, which is 780. So again, hopefully I'm not humbled by this, but that seems logical to me. And there we go. Yeah, response is D. The mean, so this is probably doing it the long-winded way. Yeah, 39 divided by 40 times 800. But yeah, it's much quicker to just say it's a 40th and we'll remove it. Okay, let's do the next question. So what is the mean number of downloads per day of app 1 for the 5 days as currently shown in this table? So remember, we've corrected this incorrect number, but that's not relevant. And usually, a lot of the time, they try to do it so that if you make one mistake, it doesn't mean that you make subsequent mistakes, like maybe in GCSE or A-level maths, right? So it's important to bear that in mind. But it's important to remember this, because this is also equally trying to trick you out, because it's probably going to think you assume you're going to use that 780. But let's also look at this. Right, so we want the mean, the average of these numbers. Now, this is where, sorry, that's not what I think I'm going to select. So what we want to do is think about how easily you can eyeball this to calculate it. So we've got 1,000, nice round number. The 600 and the 400 make another 1,000, so that's 2,000. I don't know about you, but I always know that 7 plus 8 is 15. So you know that that's going to be 1,550. So you've got 1,000, another 1,000 here, 1,550. So that's 3,550. Now, 35 divided by 5 is 7, right? That's easy. So we've got 35 plus a 50, divide that by 5 is going to be 710, right? And there you go. Luckily, we've got it there. Again, just got egg on my face for this one, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. So exactly like I said, you add them all together. I mean, you guys know how to do means, but you add them all together. But this is, again, I would be trying not to use the calculator for this. This is a really fairly simple one in my eyes. And I would at least be adding these up in my head. And then you can divide if you want to spend, I wouldn't say waste, but if you want to check in the calculator, but it does waste valuable seconds. Here, I would be trying to do it in my head. And the more you practice, the more confident you will be in your own mental maths. And then the easier you'll find it. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So the third question is saying, when the number of downloads of app 3 on day 6 is included, the median number of downloads per day for 6 days is the same as the median number of downloads per day for 5 days. So essentially it's saying a sixth day is added and the median stays the same. If the number of downloads on day 6 is included, which statement about the mean number of downloads per day is certain to be true? Okay, so in my head, before I've even looked at these answers, what am I thinking? For the median to stay the same, remember, when you put them in order, it's the middle one. So for it to be the same, what has to happen is that these, in fact, let me get a piece of paper and draw it down and write it down. Okay, I mean, I've written in surgical pen, which has gone through the entire pad, but no worries. So here is how it looks. I think that's mirrored, which isn't very helpful to you, but they can still visualize it, right? So we've got 200 here, 450, 800, 800, 1000, right? So in this, of course, the 800 is the middle. But if you were to add a number here that's lower, that the median can't be 800, because if you add a number here, the median when you have amount of numbers, an even number of numbers, is the average of the two, right? But because the median stays the same at 800, which means that when you have 6 numbers, it's the average of these two, which is obviously 800. It means that you have to have a number. It doesn't necessarily have to be bigger than 1000, but it has to be a number in this direction. It has to be 800 or higher. Otherwise, it would lower the median, right? So you can deduce the mean. If that's the case, then there's a number that's bigger than the current mean. So that has to go up because it's bigger than half of the numbers. So I'm not like really working this out, but in my head, I'm just going, okay, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, well, if the median is the same, then it has to be, whatever you want to call it, east of the number sequence. So that means what am I thinking? So then the overall average will be brought up. Right? As I'm reading that, that's what I'm thinking in my head. So let's see what the options are, and then we can decide which one is true. It is less than the current mean. So I think that is definitely not true because of what I've just said, that it's probably going to go up. It is greater than the median. So which of the statements about the mean number of downloads per day has to be true? The mean number of it is greater than the median. It is greater than the current mean. It is 800, which is the same as the median. Definitely not. It is 600, which is the same as the current median, which is definitely not true. So it is greater than the median. It is greater than the median. Let me just take a pause and reread this. So yeah, the reason I'm pausing and hesitating is because actually I've done the classic of misreading the question. So it says, is certain to be true. Now, it is greater than the median. The mean could actually not necessarily be greater than the median, because the lowest this number could be is 800, right? So that would mean, if I'm calculating it in my head, it's going to be lower than 800 because you've got only one number that's bigger than 800. Don't get me wrong, it could be, like this number could be 10,000 and that would definitely make it bigger than the mean, but it could also be 800. And that means that these two numbers are small enough to not counteract the 1000 to make it, to make that mean quite small actually. However, I'm not saying it could be, but it also won't certainly be, because this is the thing that I was stalling on, because the certain is the thing that matters. So it is greater than the current mean, so it has to be greater than the current mean, because for it to be, like I say, at the very worst, it will be 800, which again doesn't skew the mean enough. The only way it can tip the scale is by being bigger, and then by being bigger, it'll be bigger than the mean. So there's really no way that it can't be, like I say, east of 800 or north of 800, whichever way you want to call it, and not be bigger than the mean, right? I hope that makes sense. It's quite difficult to explain, but that's kind of my thinking out loud. So let's see. Okay, yeah, we're right. So the median, for 5 days is 800. If the median for 6 days is also 800, then the number of downloads of day 6 must be greater than or equal to 800. So like I say, in that row of numbers, if you'll just bear with me for the back to frontness of it, but it has to be kind of 800 or more. It has to be here. Like all of these are 650. So this is what I mean about it's a scale, right? You just know that it has to be bigger, so it's going to make it bigger. So you know that it's going to tip it in this direction, and it has to be bigger to tip it in this direction. So it's asking you what that number, so that number has to be 800 or above. You know instinctively, without even doing the calculations, that it's going to be bigger than whatever the average of these is, because you can eyeball that and know that the mean is going to be below 800, definitely. I think that's a pretty easy one to calculate, because you've got only one number that's 200 higher than the median, and you've got two numbers that are significantly below the median, right? And you just know that by looking at it is going to be lower than 800, and you know that this number is the new number is going to have to be more than 800. So it's kind of like, in my head, it's a no-brainer, really. But I'm trying to explain the inner workings out loud. Yeah, so it's calculating the two mean, basically, and it's saying that the 800 has to be bigger. But I think that the real hairs to be split between this, but remember the word certainly or certainty, or whatever it says, certain is the key point here. Crikey, I'm getting hot working all of these acts. So, right, let's do the last one. On day 3, the ratio of the number of downloads in app 1 to the number of downloads in app 2 is 3:2. What is the median number of downloads of app 2 per day for the 5 days? Right, okay, so again, before you dive in and do any calculations, just work out what it's asking you. So basically, what it wants you to do is work out this number so that you can work out the median of this. And then what it's telling you is that this is 3:2 ratio with this. So this number is 3:2 ratio with this. So basically, this plus 50% equals this. So, pretty easy to divide by 3 and add and times by 2. So that means that 750 divided by 3 is 250, times by 2 is 500. So 500 is here, and now it's asking you to calculate the median. So the median would be the middle if you put them all in order. So 500, 500, the third one is 575, which is what it would be. Fourth is 600, and the last one is 1,200. So the answer is 575. This is where people get confused sometimes or get distracted, is that you go off and calculate this number and you go, oh, it's 500. And actually, luckily there's not a 500 there to distract you, but sometimes that would happen. And then you forget to do the second part, which is actually what the question is asking. So 757 is my guess. Let's have a look. Okay, correct answer is A, brilliant. Let X be the number of downloads on app 2 on day 3. Then 700 divided by X, or X equals, wait a minute, that's not right. As in, this is right, but this should be 500. They've made a mistake here. Naughty UCAT. So that should be 500, but it doesn't change the answer. So this is the 500 that they're slotting into here. But yeah, basically, that should be 500. That gives you the total number of downloads. It's 500, 500, 575, which is the median. And there you go. That is the answer. And that, my friends, brings us to the end. So I will see you in a second, where I'll give you some really good free stuff that's going to help you with your UCAT. But like I say, this is exactly what I do on the course. I just talk you through, get you into the mindset, and just get you thinking in the way that's going to make you speedy and accurate. So yeah, I'll see you in a moment to give you some free stuff, but I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, well done for having a go at that. If you would like some more resources, you can go to the Future website, and there is a free resources tab where you can get myriad things that can help you with your application. Or check out our playlists, where we have loads of different ones for each section of the UCAT, or our greatest hits playlist to give you the best videos for each section. Or if you want to check out our course, you can do that, and that will give you more videos exactly like what you've seen in these questions today, of me talking through it, getting you into the right mind frame for how to approach each question. Or if you'd like some help and see the Future program, where we've had a 93% success rate with getting students into their first choice medical or dental school, check that out and see exactly how we can help you and submit an application to join. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you over in one of those videos.